Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am trying to film a video because I'm a booktuber. Like, I'm not filming, I'm not editing, I'm not posting. What am I doing? Am I a booktuber? I'm a booktuber. Am I trying to convince you or myself? Both? Okay. Anyways, yes, I am filming my October wrap up. I know, it's like December in like 4 days. Don't at me, bro. Don't at me. Also, I have like a raging migraine. I took 2 like extra strength Excedrin migraine and I'm having some caffeine because that usually helps. But yeah, I am in a horrible mood and I am cranky and yeah, I'm at like the bottom of my moody pit of depression and anxiety and quarter life crises, and yeah, so that mood might show through on this video. It's just gonna kind of look like extra sass, and yeah, that's how it goes. I'm gonna probably be extra sassy. I'm supposed to be a little bit over here filming, but Havoc's over here and he's just too cute not to have in the frame, so yeah, here we are. Anyways, yes, October wrap up. Wow, I just spent a minute and a half just rambling on about absolutely nothing. Don't worry, I'll edit most of it out. Will I though? Okay, I have my notes, and you know what? Let's all just be completely honest. We have notes and we use them. Okay, again, that's sass. I'm so sorry. Okay, anyways, moving on. I read 3 physical books and listened to 4 audiobooks in October. There's probably gonna be at least one time I say November in this video and just ignore it. One of these audiobooks I did start reading physically and hated it. It was like, Sarah, you just need to finish this book. Let's try to listen to it. And one thing you need to know about me is I don't DNF books. It will sit in my currently reading like queue on Goodreads and like sit on this particular bookshelf that I have in my apartment until I actually finish it. And yes, this year I have found the wonders of listening to an audiobook. Okay, he's gone. He's probably like, Mom, you are being way too loud right now. Settle down. Please hold. What was I saying? Oh yes, audiobooks. Okay, yes, and it's helped me. And when we get to that book, we'll get to it. The first book I finished was actually a physical book, and I don't remember if I talked about it in my last like wrap-up video. I'm way too lazy to go and look now, so I'm just gonna talk about it again. But I'll do it quickly because this was a very popular book that went around book Twitter and like booktube more over like the summer, so I'm like late to the game, which is like story of my life. But that was Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica. Oh my gosh. Inside joke. It's fine. Jessica, my bestie, real life bestie, if you're watching this, LOL. Anyways, by Jessica Townsend. And this was a really cute, whimsical middle grade read. It's a little bit bigger, which is fine because it was such an easy read. The words and margins are a little bit bigger, which is fine. It almost read as a middle grade to YA. Like there were some dark things that happened in this book. And so it kind of felt like that transition period where kids are moving out of middle grade and into YA without getting too like, I don't know, YA still seems a little like childish to me, but maybe it's because I'm like turning 26 this year in less than a month. Oh my gosh. Okay, quarter life crises does not need to happen on camera, Sarah. Settle down. Okay, here we are. Really fun, whimsical read. What is this wrap up? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? It's because I look halfway decent today. I'm like, Sarah, you gotta do it. Anyways, let's look at my notes. 5-star read. I love this book. It was so cute, well written, well done. The storyline was amazing. The characters were thought out, and you actually start to care about the characters like on a deep personal level. One person that I know that really loved this book was Jade from Jaded Reader. She's actually one of my very, very, very close friends here. If you've been on my channel, though, I know I have a few new subscribers. I'm not always like this, by the way, to any new subscribers that are still watching this video after minutes of me just being obnoxious. But yes, go and watch one of my other videos because I promise I'm not always like this. Okay, anyways, also Rachel from Rachel Marie, she also really, really enjoyed this book, and I can see why. This book is just so fantastically well done. The magic system was also very entertaining. It wasn't only like super well done and thought out, it was entertaining. It was something different. It wasn't like the regular, like this is the magic system. At the same time, having that magical feeling of what you thought magic was when you were younger. And so I think between those 2 aspects of the magic system for this book, it was just so well done and I loved it so much. There was also a mystery like plot going on that played all throughout the book, and it played off like the magic and adventure aspect of the plot all the way through the book, and it was just such a nice touch. I am getting so many emails from work right now, like I am busy. Like why am I still logged in? Like I'm off hours. It is after 4:30. 9:30. Like, who's still at work? But yes, so here it is, and I loved it so much. It's such a cute middle grade. So reason number one, and the only reason really why I'm talking about this book potentially in 2 videos, is because this is just a really good book. Now my cat is scratching on his like little like cardboard scratching thing, and today I'm not gonna cry. Not gonna cry on camera. Okay, here we are. It's like the little things some days, they're like nails on a chalkboard. Having take a nap. Yes, lay down, take a nap. Okay. The next one was also one of my physical reads. This one I recently gifted to Madison from Princess of Paperback or Paperback Princess. I can never remember, so usually I just say both and then edit out whichever one that isn't correct. Hi, Madison. Anyways, she gifted this to me last Christmas or my last birthday, or I probably still have. I keep the notes when you guys write them to me and send me things because I love you all. Okay. Oh yes, this was when I was new to BookTube. I'm like, people sending me gifts, like I don't deserve you. And then Madison kind of convinced me that I do indeed deserve love. So thanks, Madison. You're just a doll. Oh, this was in congratulations for me getting my new job back in December. And now my job is like driving me insane, but you know, strides in your career, guys. Strides. Oh my gosh, I was just about to like put this down. Okay, I still need to talk about it. I love this series. She gifted this to me after I finished book 1. This is book 2 of the series because I loved it so much. I'm like, oh! And after she read book 1, and so we kind of talked about book 1, I'm like, I need to read the next book. And so she gifted it to me, and then I read it like 8 months later. So hey, I read it. Yes, okay, that's a different video. Tune in to my December TBR to hear me complain about myself. Anyways, yes, so I read this, and funny story, actually, short story, I am just a rambling mess today. I gifted this to her for her birthday this past month. So she gifted this to me last year, and then I gifted this book to her like a couple weeks ago because, yeah, she had it on her wish list, and I'm like, how funny would that be? I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, like I gave book 1 5 out of 5 stars, and oh my gosh, I didn't even tell you what this book was. Sorry. It's Fireblood by Ellie Blake. Book 1 is Frostblood by Ellie Blake, which I also gave 5 stars. But just so I don't give too much away, book 1 is about a Fireblood girl who's basically living in a Frostblood kingdom, and this kingdom has actually killed off or exiled or sent to a killing arena all the Firebloods in the kingdom because that's just the Frostblood king's way. And basically she's one of the last ones. She's extremely powerful, and so she goes on to this quest with people, I don't want to give that away, to destroy the Frostblood king's chair, like his throne, because that is where the power resides. And so it's just this really great story about this girl who is basically breaking down walls and barriers that she is not meant to be breaking down. Ruby, the main character, you see her transform, completely transform in book 1, and the transformation actually continues on in book 2. And it's just, I love when I see female protagonists who are strong, independent, and headstrong go from maybe even just a little bit ignorant to just so completely amazing, and they learn so much about the world around them and themselves, and that is how Ruby transforms in this series. And with that being said, the character development in this series is just bloody fantastic, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. I also like Ruby's love interest in this story. In book 2, there is a small like love triangle thing that's going on, and that did feel a little bit awkward, but I did feel like in some parts of the book, it kind of added to the story. But her main love interest, and who I'm assuming she's gonna end up with, really plays off of her weaknesses. So they both have strengths and weaknesses that play off of each other, and I think that's what I really enjoy about the love interest itself. The adventure in this book was great. I do love a great adventure story. And then Ruby learns a little bit more about her powers, how to harness them, how to use them, when to use them, what they mean for herself, her soul, her being, and it was just a great book 2. There are not very many book 2s in trilogies where I'm like, that was great, but this was great. So the next 2 books I'm going to talk about together, they were both audiobooks, and they were from the Forge trilogy. They were books 2 and 3. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you guys. Forge trilogy, books 2 and 3. Book 2 I gave 5 stars, and book 3 I gave 4 stars. And so basically basically this series is a smutty romance series. That's what it comes down to. I'm sure that's what the genre is. But I loved the love interest. Like the love interest was fantastic. And for some reason, as the love interest progressed, I was finding it to become extremely cute. We have Forge, who is the main like guy. He's rich, he's handsome, he has connections, and he is basically self-made in basically being like this billionaire. And there is a lot of backstory to both of the main characters' lives that just play into everything. And so it's not just a smutty romance, like it has a really great story behind all of that. Also, if you like poker, the Forge trilogy, like one of the main mysteries is behind what the players are giving and taking as like bets for poker. The poker scenes were very well written, and I don't play poker. I don't know how to play poker, but I'm assuming this author knows what she's talking about because I felt like I understood. So, but the main girl, India Baptiste, is a world-renowned poker player. She's like the best in some of the world circuits and all of that. I, again, don't play poker. I don't exactly know what that means, but I'm assuming it's important and that she's really good. And so there is a bet, there is some things that go on with her sister, and things happen to where she and Forge meet and, you know, feelings are kindled. This was definitely a hate to love relationship. I hate to love. It was a hate to love. For me, it was a hate to love also. The audiobook though, the only thing I didn't like about the audiobook that didn't take away too much of the story was I didn't like the female's narration of the male's voice. Because they do have two voices, one for the male, one for the female. But when they use each other's voices in whichever point of view we're in, it was very odd. And I was just like, it always threw me off a little bit. But by the end of book 3, I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. But book 1, I was like, can I listen to this? It really isn't bad. And the story is so great. I highly recommend. So book 3 is the only book in the series I'm giving a 4-star instead of a 5-star. It's because I felt like with such a complex series that the ending was a little bit too abrupt and wrapped up like a little bit too nicely, I guess. And that's all I'm really gonna say about that because like otherwise I'm gonna be giving you spoilers. But the ending did seem really wrapped up and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that yet, but I'm working through those feelings. Next is a book and series I feel like I talk about every single video on my channel. Would I be a true fan if I didn't? But this was a reread. It is book 2 of the Firewalker series by Josephine Angelini, and book 2 is Firewalker. And so 5 out of 5 stars, of course. I love the love interest in this story. And the love triangle didn't make me super angry. Actually made me really thoughtful. Like the love triangle in this series it makes you think. Like it does. It really makes you think. And I felt like it was realistic. I mean, this is a very like fantastical, magical world and plot, but for like the actual relationships, it was realistic and complex. And I appreciate that in this series. This is a reread. I think it's like the 4th time, 3rd time. I don't even know. I've read this series so many times. But again, the cliffhanger. Okay, let's talk about this cliffhanger. Left me broken. The cliffhanger in this book is one of the best cliffhangers in any book I've ever read. You get to about 80% through this book and something happens that I remember the first time I read it, I screamed. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This cannot be happening. What are you doing? And I remember the first time I read it, I was so mad. And the cliffhanger leads off of that. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? It also has one of the most heartbreaking deaths that I have ever read. And I can't talk about it anymore. I'm gonna like break into tears. I'm very emotional right now. So this book follows Lily, who gets swept into another universe, which is a mirror image of her own. Just when the Salem witch trials were going on, instead of hanging their witches, they burn their witches. And things happen after that. So the witches become very powerful, and that is the universe kind of, there's like a hair on my lip, kind of what happens in the world that she's swept into. So instead of science being the main form of like energy and industrialization, it is the magic and witches that kind of control this universe. And so she meets her other universes, like mirror universe's self, who it comes across as very evil. She has these very horrible plans, and you really have to to digest everything you learn about Lily's other self, who goes by Lillian in this story. You learn the things she does that you learn in book one, you learn the reasons, you learn the backstory, you learn just the heartbreaking tale of what has led to the actions of the current time or place. Josie as a writer brings so much thought and political dynamics into her book without being too political, if that makes sense. And some of the things that are brought up in this book are relevant in today's world or society. There is talk about like the indigenous people, kind of what that means. In this series, the indigenous people are not allowed into what they call the 13 cities. They live outside the walls where there are beasts that basically hunt them and kill them and like eat them and like all that stuff. And she talks about how they've been outside the cities for so long that now they're a meshed being. So there aren't a bunch of different Native American tribes. They're all just kind of one tribe that mesh together. So there's multiple languages and multiple cultures and songs and traditions that are all meshed together. And I think the way that she kind of explained it and went about it was just so beautiful, and it's so true, and it's how the human race works after time. Americans aren't just Americans anymore. We're this giant pot of all these different traditions and cultures and people. And even though we're not perfect today, she did a really good job at mirroring the problems in a fantastical, magical sense and kind of writing it a different way, but it's struggles that we still, as a society in real life, deal with on a daily basis. I feel like I just got really deep. This is a good book. So I urge you to read this book. I know it's not for everyone. There's a few people in my life that didn't like it. There's a few people that were like, oh, you know, this is a good book. But I think I'm the only one so far that was like, this is the best series ever. And I'm not sure why. There's a few things in this series where I really connect to the main character. This series was here for me in a time where I was struggling in life. So it might just be like more personal, emotional level why I adore this series so much. But it was just so good. And I urge you to read this series. And if you do, talk to me. And my last two books are both audiobooks. So this one that I'm going to be talking about, I'll put up somewhere. I'm kind of like sitting directly in the middle. It's fine. My camera's overheating. Fantastic. Why wouldn't it? Okay. Is Kerry by Stephen King. And I give this 3 stars. And like the more I think about it, like after like the month and a half that I've read it, or whenever I finished it, I want to give it 2 stars. This is the book where I hated it so much that I listened to it in audiobook, like to and from work, because I feel like this book is just ridiculous. Clearly I wasn't a fan. And that's like my first bullet point in my notes. Wasn't a fan. The beginning was very slow. And that's one of the main reasons why I got the audiobook, and it's probably the only reason why I actually finished the book. The fact that it's about a young girl's first menstrual cycle and how it talks so in-depthly about it and how visual it gets and how it's just like the reoccurring theme throughout the entire book was weird. I feel like, I don't know, in even girls with really traumatizing first times, and Kerry has a very traumatizing first time, like very, very, very traumatizing, we get over it, I guess. And I don't want to sound, I don't know how to talk about like having a menstrual cycle and like it not getting like too personal or gross, but like we learn to live with it. I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And so just the reoccurring is just like again and again and again. And one of the last scenes, they use pig's blood as like a metaphor for like her first time. I'm just like, oh my gosh, can we move on from this? I felt like there needed to be another problem later in the book that maybe acted off of her first time being so traumatic, but instead they just he just used the same issue. And it's just like, this is ridiculous. I hate it. The story moves slowly, the plot moves slowly. It was just this girl's, I don't know, struggle with like her first time, and then she, I don't know, it triggered her being like telekinetic or whatever it's called, and I'm just frustrated and disturbed by this book, I guess. It did give a lot of background and dialogue, but even with all that background and dialogue, I don't feel like you actually got anything out of the book. Like the book didn't go anywhere, and I think that's what I was most frustrated about. All in all, I thought it was kind of creepy, which I guess is Stephen King, but I also thought the storyline and plot were lacking, if that makes sense. I'm gonna keep it at a 3-star because I don't know, sometimes when you talk about something you don't like dislike after a while, I feel like you can get more heated than how you actually felt when you finished the book. So I'm gonna keep it at a 3, but right now, talking about it, I feel like it's a 2. But moving on. And then my last audiobook and last book for October was Midnight Rescue by L. Kennedy, and I gave this 4 stars. It was another smutty romance book, and I found, why am I trying to think about things to talk about? I have a whole page here. Okay. This book deals with a lot and has a lot of trigger warnings, and I want to start off this kind of like mini book review in this wrap up with that. It has trigger warnings. It has trigger warnings for rape, sexual assault, human trafficking, emotional and physical trauma and violence, also sexual assault of minors, and how this main character deals with that. So there are trigger warnings. This is a smutty romance book, but it deals with a lot of things. And so you should be aware that it's not just some romance. Camera indeed did overheat. So I'm trying to get this done. Okay, so Abby Sinclair is the main female protagonist in this smutty serious romance. She grew up, if I remember correctly, it was like with an abusive father or stepfather or like mother's boyfriend figure. She works for this military contractor or something of the sorts, and she goes on a mission to infiltrate a sex trafficking ring. And while she is there, she is caught. They realize who she is. She is beaten. There are some scenes where they strip her naked and then beat her that way. So it is very serious. But this ex-military, also contractor, who works for a different military contractor, ends up saving her. This group, so basically it is this female military contract group and this male military contractor group. She works for the female and he works for the male. But the female, like, leader goes to the male group and says, hey, one of my girls was caught. She needs like exfiltration, like things are going to happen. And because of one of the guys that took her in, the guy that took her in when she was younger was also ex-military, and he knew and I think worked with this male military contract group. And so with that, they go in and they save her. The ex-military guy, Jeremy, who takes her in and saves her from her abusive stepfather guy, I guess you could say, that background story plays a huge role in the story as a whole. And so that's something to really remember, that when she was being beaten and sexually assaulted by a father figure, he is the one that saved her, he is the one that took her in, he is the one that trained her to basically be a badass. But the guy that actually goes in and saves her and carries her out is Kane. And they actually extract her from the situation, but they aren't able to save the girls within the compound. And so that's where the rest of the story takes place. That is the plot line of them finding people and a plan to go in and to extract these girls from this human sex trafficking ring. There are a lot of side characters that play really big roles and have pretty big storylines, but basically the female and male military contract groups come together to devise a plan to get these girls out of this fortified compound. And all the while all this is happening, Abby's feelings grow and like they fall in love and like all that, everything you'd expect from a story like this. And there was also some side romance that went on between one of the other females and males that I thought was really great and refreshing. But one of the main things that is talked about in the story, which I just thought was absolutely fantastic, the way it was kind of went about it, was Abby, the main character, who is basically molested as a child and goes all throughout that before she is saved by Jeremy. She deals with not thinking that she has a sexual drive and what that means for all of her relationships. And so in the past, she's done everything for the mission, even if it meant sleeping with someone, even if it brought no feelings of pleasure to her. She didn't think that she liked males or females, and she just didn't have an urge to do anything, and she would only do so for a mission, if it got her to her end goal for a mission. And so this is something she deals with after a very traumatizing childhood, and something that is very realistic. It happens where there's just this part of your brain that just shuts down, and Kane opens up those feelings, and the struggle she goes through to dissect these new feelings and what they mean and what she does with them, I think was really refreshing. So yes, this isn't just a smutty romance. It deals with a lot of intense topics, and so it does have a lot of very intense triggers. So please, before going into this, do think very hardly about the triggers and what that might mean for you. But I do have the next audiobook, which is book 2, on hold on my OneDrive, and I do plan on listening to it. But the ending was a little, I don't know, I felt like another one that I felt wrapped up very smoothly for a very messy story, if that makes sense. But yes, those are my books. Those are what I read. And yeah, so this is already almost like 30 minutes long, and I hope to edit it out down quite a lot. But I feel like I wrote really good notes this time, so I feel like I told you guys a lot of really great things about these books. So I really hope you watched all the way through, that you enjoyed them. Please let me know down below. Comment, have you read any of these books? Do you want to read any of these books? Is there a book that kind of interests you when I was talking about it? Your thoughts on when you don't like a book, moving to audiobook to see if you can finish it, that kind of thing. I talked about a lot of things, especially at the beginning, about like mental health and stuff, because I am struggling, clearly. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below if you haven't already. And for all my new subscribers, I hope you enjoyed. All love. Bye.